Welcome everyone. I'm just going to give this video just a couple of seconds just to catch up, because often with Facebook Live there's a little bit of a time delay and I end up talking over myself. Those of you guys are signing in, welcome. Everyone hear me okay? Someone just gives me a quick thumbs up, let me know it's all clear and that I'm coming through nicely, no connection problems. I think I'm all good. Okay, welcome, massive welcome to the Ayurvedic Contentment Challenge. Hi Jacqueline, hi Danielle. Thank you Danielle for all your amazing work. So super excited. Hi Jenny, hi Julie. Super excited to kick off the Ayurvedic Contentment Challenge. It's something that Holly and I have kind of been designing and creating, pretty much since the end of last year, with COVID and with lockdown and all of the disruptions that have come with it. One of the things that we've seen an awful lot of in terms of our clinic and our practice is just this understandable reduction in emotional vitality. This, not depression, just a flatness, a lack of emotional vitality, just a general lack of discontent. And that's something that, we're kind of hell-bent on addressing, because contentment is the foundation of just health. If we look at our physical health profiles, our emotional health profiles, what it is to be a fit, healthy, vital person, contentment is the bedrock of that. And there's such powerful Western clinical evidence that when we are existing in a body and a mind that is content, it's been shown to enhance longevity, it's been shown to reduce disease risk factors, it's been shown to enhance physiological function, it's been shown to enhance emotional well-being. It's just a panacea. So we're so excited to bring this challenge to you because, these challenges, we've run quite a few of these challenges over the years, and we, the more we do of them, the more Holly and I love them, because they create this amazing energy. We're all about energy. I think energy makes the world move. And in these kinds of online communities, everyone brings so much inspiration and energy to the group. We've got 300, I think we've got 310 people on the Facebook group. I think we've got about 650 signed up to the challenge collectively. And the interaction, the feedback, the photos, the meal prep, the comments, just the kind of the sense of empowerment and energy, and just a desire to take control of our health is just so inspiring for Holly and I. So we're so grateful that you've decided to join us. We're so grateful that you're here, and I can't wait to progress through the next week and go through this framework. So tonight I just want to talk a little bit about, in most of these videos, obviously we've got a live video every day for the rest of the week. All the videos are at midday, 12 o'clock, but they all last about between 20 and 30 minutes, sometimes a little bit more, but they'll all stay up on the Facebook page. Okay, so if you can't watch one, or you have to leave before we wrap up, then you can always catch up. Okay, so tonight I just want to talk a little bit about the rationale for the challenge, what we're aiming to achieve, and why we know that this framework works. And then I want to focus it on the first contentment ritual of the challenge, which obviously we're always a day ahead. So the aim is that we're embedding the first contentment ritual tomorrow, which is Pranayama, which I'm going to talk about. But all I would say is that these challenges, irrespective of what the concept is, they're cumulative. So the aim being that tomorrow we embed the first contentment ritual. On Tuesday, we embed the second one whilst keeping the first one. On Wednesday, we add in a third one whilst keeping the first and second one. We get this accumulative gain. And if we do that, we get the benefits. And if we get the benefits, we will experience a significant increase in just emotional health and well-being. There's 5,000 years of time-tested history from the Ayurvedic and yogic frameworks to support that. There's robust Western clinical trial data to support that, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We've taught this framework. We've taught something called swastha, which is the Ayurvedic concept of just powerful contentment that's above and beyond what's going on around you. And we've taught that. I've had the privilege of teaching that to hundreds of people who are terminally ill, who are facing their mortality head on. And if this framework can induce peace and contentment in people who are facing that kind of experience, imagine how much more profound it can be in people who aren't. Okay, so it includes everyone. And I know it works. In my life, in our family's life, in having taught thousands of people, I don't need the Western evidence. I don't need the Ayurvedic, 5,000 years. I know it works. I know it works because I've seen it work. And this week is just about cherry picking some of the key, powerful components from that whole framework and embedding it in a way, into our lives in a way that's sustainable and achievable. And if we do that, it will work. Okay. And also thanks everyone who's signing in. It's amazing to have so many here. Thank you for all your lovely comments here. Hi everyone. Hi Anna. Hi Mary. Hi Julia. Hi Lisa. So why have we chosen contentment? And this is a question we've probably been asked more than anything else over the last couple of weeks since we've opened up the doors. Why not the happiness challenge or the joy challenge or the bliss challenge, or why contentment? And I think there's a really fundamental answer to that, which is contentment is the foundation of where our mind works from. All those other states I've just spoken about, happiness, joy, peace, what the general kind of psychological thinking is that those states are transient, they're short-lived, and they're usually induced by a thing or a person or a situation or a place. So like I said in the workbook, it might be, you watch a beautiful sunset and you feel happy, or you go out for a lovely dinner with someone you really care about and you feel happy, or you get a new promotion and you feel happy, or you get a new car and you feel happy. But after a while, though, your response to those things wanes, or you fall out of love with something, or it loses its appeal, or whatever. And as those things lose their appeal, our happiness goes with them. What we want is a level of contentment as a default setting. So we're going through life, and whether it's a good day or whether it's a bad day, whether we're having a good time or a difficult time, we have this rock solid default state of contentment that is above and beyond the ability of outside events to rock it. It might make it a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but it's always our default setting. And that's one of the most important principles of the Ayurvedic and yogic framework, is this idea that we need autonomy over our health. Because if my happiness is dependent upon someone else or something else, then I'm not in control of it. And there's lots of definitions of contentment, but the one I love is the one that I put in the workbook, which is the ability to progress through life in a state of kind of being fully at ease, being settled in our body, in our mind, in our life, and our situation. And what a beautiful place to play our life from. To be settled, to be comfortable, to be at ease in our mind, to be at ease in our body, to be at ease in our life and our situation. What more? If we could click our fingers and have that, and we can all have that. On a spectrum. What more could we possibly ask for? To wake up and think, I'm completely at ease where I am now, with my mood, with my physical health, with my situation, with my life, and that that's such a fundamental way in which to exist. And that's what this whole idea of swastika is about. It's about this level of contentment that's above and beyond anything else. So when we have the beautiful sunset or the lovely dinner or the new car, that's the cherry on top of the cake. It's not the cake. Okay, it adds to the contentment. When the car gets old or the sunset goes or we have to go to work on Monday, the level of contentment is still there. Okay, and that's what this whole framework is about. That's what this 5,000-year-old framework that's been modified and tweaked and altered and changed over those 5,000 years, but has been true to its core. That's what it's all about. That's what it's about. It's about building this contentment that is completely independent of what is going on around us. And I think, I went through that trajectory of thinking initially that's a very hard thing to get your head around. Is it wishful thinking, or is it actually possible? And it is possible. And I'll talk about on Thursday, I talk about lessons of contentment from a dying man. And if you've read the workbook, you would have got a bit of an insight into what I'm talking about there. But a guy I met who was terminally ill at Crawley Hospital, we did a lot of work with, and the impact he had on me, because he was the living embodiment of all of this theory. And I know for a fact that if someone facing only a few months of life can cultivate a level of contentment that is just off the chart, then I know we all can. Okay, and Nick is my kind of beacon. If ever I'm having a bad day, or if ever I'm struggling with anything, he's kind of what I hold on to, and I can't wait to share his story with you because it's a profound one. Okay. And one of the kind of statements I love is this idea of contentment being an inside job. Okay, contentment is an inside job. We choose contentment. It's not about changing our situation. It's not about changing our position. It's not about changing our bank balance. It's about changing our perception of those things. And we always have complete control over our choices and our perceptions. And if anyone's read Viktor Frankl's work in the Holocaust or any of the Holocaust transcripts, they talk about this idea of having no control over their situation, but 100% control over their response to it. Nelson Mandela in Robben Island, you read his work, the same thing. He couldn't change that situation, but for 30 years, he changed his perception to it, and through doing so, changed his reality. And we all have that tool, we all have that ability, which is what this week is all about. And that's where the concept of swastika comes in. Okay, so if you haven't read the workbook, or you haven't had the chance to see the workbook, then that concept, you might want to go and revisit that, because we've got a couple of pages in the workbook about it. But swastika is one of the most important concepts in the whole of Ayurveda, and it's probably one of the most important concepts for me as an individual, and as someone who's been immersed in Ayurveda for so long. It's as an approach to life. It's the one that I value perhaps more than any other, and it translates as very similar to the Western definition of contentment. Swastika relates to this idea of being settled in ourself in a place of perfect or optimal health. So we're settled in our body, we're settled in our mind, we're settled in our situation, and we're experiencing that settledness from a place of very, very robust, strong health, and living in a state of swastika. That's if you think about the yogic traditions, if you think about the ashram culture, if you think about all of the spirituality and philosophy that Ayurveda and yoga have developed and brought into the world, it's all kind of funneled onto that idea of living in swastika, because like I said, that's what we all want to be. We want to be settled in our body, in our mind, in our life. And it's all kind of being directed into that idea of, can we progress through life decade after decade after decade, in this state of swastika? And that's, I think, is the be all and end all of what a healthy, happy, contented life is about. And the framework we'll be exploring is based around this idea of cultivating swastika. As we go through the week, we pick. There are 101. Well, there aren't that many, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of concepts that we could have chosen. Swastika is a big subject, and there's lots of things. In the workbook, I spoke about this idea of looking at us. If we're looking to develop contentment and peace and happiness in our life, we have to look at our physical body, our mental body, and our energetic body. And Western science is proving this. We know we have to take into account the whole of us. And there are dozens of things we could have picked. Obviously, we picked the 5 or 6 things that we picked this week that we'll explore each day, because they're the ones that give a real variety. Okay, but there's a lot more, and I'll be giving some options for exploring a lot more of that later in the week. But that brings us on to the first contentment ritual of the week. So we're discussing it tonight, with the aim being we'll embed it tomorrow. And the first contentment ritual of the week is pranayama. Okay, and I'd imagine that there's probably the full spectrum of experiences of pranayama from the 115 people who are listening tonight, and that some of you probably know all about it. A lot of you are probably trained to teach it, and you know all about why I've chosen it, in terms of the sheer potency that it brings to our mental health. And at the other end of the spectrum might be people who've never even heard of it, never heard of pranayama, and it makes no difference where you fall on that spectrum. Everyone can get the same level of benefit from it. You don't need any prior experience, any prior knowledge. This isn't something that's cliquey or a reserve of a few. This is open to everyone. Okay, Daniel, I love pranayama, and I think that's a great timed comment, because that's my experience of pranayama. Is once someone commits to it, for more than a couple of weeks, the evidence is generally speaking, it takes 21 days to cultivate a habit, I suppose. That's the general consensus. If you do that with pranayama and you continue month after month, the impacts, it's one of those things that people hardly never ever give up on, because it's like saying I'm going to give up on brushing my teeth, or I'm going to give up on doing things I enjoy. Why would you do that? Why would you give up pranayama? Because people feel fundamentally different during and after practicing it, and there's an accumulative effect. And what is so interesting is that yoga and Ayurveda have turned to pranayama for 4,000 or 5,000 years, not as an important self-care practice, not as an additional extra, but as the bedrock of what it is to understand the body and the mind from the Ayurvedic and yogic perspective. Because pranayama is if you have no experience of it, it's a whole science of yogic breathing exercises, which are designed to control and regulate the life force of the body, which is called prana in Ayurveda, which is the animating force of every cell in the body, our body as a whole, every other living organism in the whole cosmos, in this universe and wherever else. Everything that's alive is alive because of prana, and it's the breath. If you think about, if we're alive now, and then suddenly we die. What's the difference between those 10 seconds when we're alive and the 10 seconds after we're declared dead? Our organs are still in tip-top condition. There's still nerve impulses. The only thing that's different is that there's no oxygen moving through the body. Okay, there's no breath. Okay, and that's Ayurveda calls that prana. We call it oxygen. It's obviously prana isn't oxygen. Prana is a lot more than that, but it's the animating component of the body. And what I find mind-blowing, and those of you who are on the Ayurvedic Mentor, those of you who've listened to me over the years, I love this idea of ancient wisdom being supported by rigorous Western clinical trial data. This marriage of something that is 5,000 years old, when they had no blood work, no MRIs, no brain mapping, no genetic profiling, nothing other than jungle ashrams, and how they understood the sheer significance of these concepts, which 5,000 years later are being clinically proven at the genetic level, at the brain mapping level, at the blood level. It's this 5,000 year gulf, and they're both saying the same things, that these things work because of X, Y, and Z. And pranayama is all encompassing. There's not one cell in the human body that isn't affected by pranayama, because there isn't one cell in the body that's not affected by the life force, by oxygen, by blood, and everything else. Judy, will it help fatigue? I'll talk about that in a minute. Actually, it's one of the things I want to focus on. But for chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, pranayama is just game changing, and I'll talk about why. Jenny, hi. Is there an optimal time of the day to do it? There are different components to that, but I think, generally speaking, the morning I find is a good way, is a good time. But any time of the day is better than not doing it. Okay, but if you can try and dovetail. And Jenny, I've got your email, and I will respond. Okay, so it's been a bit manic since I got it. Okay, Jenny Smith, I love that Western society is finally waking up to the power of pranayama. Yeah, it's mind blowing, isn't it? I just, I've been involved in that research I've always been involved in that for the last 10 years, but the last month or so, obviously we've read every paper we can just to check a few points out, and it's just got, as the months go by, the evidence gets stronger and stronger and stronger and more compelling and more compelling. And I just find it mind-blowing. So we could quite easily now be talking about physical health. This could be lower your blood pressure challenge, or it could be elevate your immune system challenge, or it could be sleep better challenge. And pranayama would still be clinically indicated. There is Western clinical trial data to show how pranayama lowers blood pressure, it regulates heart rhythm, it increases oxygen exchange, it stimulates immunity, it lowers inflammation. And we could talk ad nauseum about that. But obviously this challenge is all about contentment. It's about emotional health, it's about emotional well-being, emotional vitality, emotional empowerment. So obviously we're going to focus on that side of things. And there are three aspects I want to specifically focus in on because of their direct kind of relevance to what we're about this week. And I as we go through the week, I am going to contextualize things from the Ayurvedic perspective, because that's obviously where we're coming from. But I think it's also really important to support and contextualize that with the most robust Western research, because that's what we're about. We're about marrying these two sides up. And in Ayurveda, pranayama works because it elevates and animates and regulates every cell in the human body. And ill health is because our cell function drops. Radical health is because our cell function optimizes. So pranayama affects everything. Okay, but I want to talk about the 3 specific ways why pranayama had to be in this challenge with regards to cultivating that state of autonomous contentment, that empowerment, that swastha that we spoke about a minute ago. Okay, so I want to talk about brainwave activity. I want to talk about altering brain function, and I want to talk about things like sleep and energy. Okay, so if we think about brainwave activity, we've obviously got these different frequencies of brainwave activity that depend upon what we're doing. And most people in waking state are in gamma wave activity, which is our rational thinking, problem solving, engaged in life brainwave activity, and we need that. We couldn't survive without that. But we exist in gamma wave rational brain activity a lot more every day than what we're designed to do. And what does that do? It leads to burnout. It leads to emotional fatigue. It's linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety and OCD. It leads to emotional fragility and kind of burnout and breakdowns and all of those kinds of things. But what happens when we engage with practices like pranayama? And it's not just pranayama. Meditation does it, prayer does it, even repetitive aerobic exercise does it, self-massage does it. But one of the things about pranayama is it does it very, very quickly, probably more quickly than maybe anything else, in that because meditation is a passive self-care technique. It's a profoundly important one, but it's passive. Pranayama is active. We're consciously controlling our breath. And what happens if we all sat down now, shut our eyes and engaged in pranayama? So say we picked alternate nostril breathing, which is where you breathe through different nostrils in either nostril in a sequence. The researchers looked at this with state-of-the-art EEG mapping, so brainwave mapping. And what that research shows is that in a very, very short period of time, in some people within about 90 seconds, our brainwave activity switches from gamma, rational, problem-solving, kind of Western, into primarily alpha brainwave activity, which is our contemplative, calm, peaceful, contented, happy state. What those traits there, those states there, that's what swastha looks like, being settled in our body, settled in our mind. And when they've looked at things like dopamine secretion, serotonin secretion, oxytocin secretion, all of the hormones that make us feel safe and secure and happy and contented, they're all optimized during and through and after pranayama. So this idea that Ayurveda and yoga has been saying we can use pranayama to cultivate contentment, to cultivate emotional resilience against the outside world. We know that if we're having a really stressful day, we get home or we're at work and we're absolutely wired, we're pulling our hair out and we just feel completely overwhelmed. If we can move our brain into alpha wave activity just for 4, 5, 6 minutes, it resets the whole physiology. It resets the blood pressure, it resets the immune system, it resets our mood. And pranayama has the capacity to do that now from a Western clinical trial-based platform. Okay, and also the other beauty of the brainwave activity is that it lasts for a long time after the pranayama. When the pranayama practice ends, we don't then switch back. We maintain more alpha wave activity for the rest of the day. It's easier to enter into that kind of contemplative, peaceful, contented mindset. Okay, so if you look at what that brainwave activity is saying, it's moving us into swastha. It's moving us into that state of deep inner contentment. aside from the 5,000-year-old history, it's now got this, comprehensive brain mapping data to show that it does that. So that's the first thing to emphasize. We know tomorrow, that the contentment challenge tomorrow is to engage in 10 to 20 minutes of pranayama, based upon, I'll talk about that in a minute actually, but if we do that, if we commit, we're all taking part in this challenge, let's kind of really commit to it. Let's stand up and say, right, I've committed to these 5 days, and I'm going to do my very best to make the most of it and really commit to these daily rituals. Rituals. And if we do the pranayama practice tomorrow, our brain will be working in a different way. And if it's working in a different way, we will experience the differences, whether that's just feeling a little bit calmer or a little bit less stressed or a little bit wide or whatever it may be, but it will work, which is why it's so important we all commit tomorrow to getting, those 10, 15 minutes into the system. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing that then, Donna, I've lived my life on overwhelm. If you lived your life on overwhelm, then it's nothing that can't be undone. Okay, every breath, every day is a new day. Very, very robust, almost Nobel Prize winning research to show that it doesn't matter where we start implementing self-care, we can undo damage from 1, 2, 3 decades, 4 decades of stress or overwhelm or obesity or whatever it is. Okay, a lot of you saying the same. Ray, exactly the same. It doesn't matter what's gone before, we have the capacity to undo it. Okay, and there's evidence published in some of the most powerful medical journals in the world, the New England Journal of Medicine, the Lancet, the BMJ, to support that. So Donna, Ray, Lucy, it doesn't matter. What's happened doesn't matter compared to what's going to happen. Okay, so brainwave function. So we've spoken about brainwave function, but brain, rather than just brainwave activity, actual structural changes to the way the brain is working. This is almost the new frontier of pranayama. So if we think about what happens, so those of you who've just said there, I've lived my life on overwhelm. If we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling stressed, if we feel insecure about our situation, that's the thing that we've seen in clinic with COVID more than anything else, a real fear around what's coming up over the next 6-12 months, which is understandable. What that does is it activates something in the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala, which you may have heard of. The amygdala is an area of the brain that is responsible for kind of our fight or flight response, our response to threat and danger and uncertainty. And when the amygdala is turned on, our fight or flight is turned on. Which means we feel more anxious, we have shallower breathing, our blood pressure goes up, we feel tense, the shoulders come up, we're in a stress response. Research now using state-of-the-art MRI, so comprehensive brain imaging, which is not open for debate, it's what areas of the brain light up, has now proven unequivocally that if you take someone who's stressed, who's anxious, who's overwhelmed, or is living in that gamma wave, that kind of Western rational mindset, which can exhaust us. If you get them practicing pranayama, and then they research them over 4 weeks, they fundamentally, these people who were practicing, and I think it was 162 people, men and women, different ages, they fundamentally changed the way their brain was working. They physically, their amygdala turned off. Well, it didn't turn off, but it became hypoactive, slow compared to hyperactive. The areas of the brain that were responsible for processing stress and anxiety and fear were pretty much dormant. And in turn, in response, the areas of the brain that were responsible for the reward system, the dopamine system, the contented, that I'm safe, I'm secure, I'm protected, I'm happy, I'm contented, I'm at peace. Those areas of the brains, they came on. I can share. I've got the MRI images here. I can share with you these areas of the brain coming on just from pranayama. It wasn't through diet or meditation or this, that, or the other. It was just through using pranayama. These people were turning their brains from being almost pre-programmed into an overwhelmed, stress, wired, unhappy, discontented area, into turning it into a contentment, swastika-inducing brain activity. Okay, and the fact that you can map this, you can physically see it on an MRI, I think is mind-blowing. Okay, and then the third thing is, someone asked about fatigue. Pranayama is really good for increasing energy in the physical body and in the emotional body, and also in terms of increasing our sleep quality and quantity. And one of the things we probably see more than anything else in clinic is people who aren't sick. They're not necessarily diseased, they haven't got pathology, but they're not well. Okay, they haven't got vitality, they don't feel energized, they don't feel kind of balanced, they don't feel like they did feel 5, 10, 15 years ago. Okay, and that level of suboptimal health, not disease, but suboptimal health, it sucks us dry, it grinds us down. We feel flat, we feel a bit discontented, we just feel, deflated. Okay, and that's something we have to really, really guard against, because it kind of creeps up on us without us really recognizing it. And one of the things, if we're managing people in clinic who have that kind of problem, pranayama is one of the first things we implement, because the Western evidence shows that pranayama is now clinically proven to increase physical energy. It increases something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is a chemical that the cells produce, which is kind of the energy currency of the body. And we know that practices like pranayama, meditation, yoga, they increase the secretion of ATP. So they physically increase the cell's ability to produce energy, including brain cells. So our emotional vitality increases, our physical vitality increases, we get better sleep. Pranayama is now clinically proven to increase sleep quality. So all of a sudden we go from being in this kind of suboptimal state into an optimal state. I'm not saying pranayama is a panacea for everything, but I'm saying that I think, personally speaking, and from the evidence and from my experience, I think pranayama is implicated and benefits anything that's not right in the body, whether it's cancer, whether it's Parkinson's, whether it's insomnia, whether it's anxiety, whether it's arthritis, anything, because all of those problems involve cells. They have to involve cells, and every cell is affected by the breath. Therefore, it's affected by pranayama. Okay, so I think there's nothing in existence in the body that's not going to be helped by pranayama. Okay, so it's, for me, it's a no-brainer. And for me, I think it's a fundamental, this is probably the first thing we chose to go into this challenge. Okay, so the contentment ritual tomorrow, the challenge tomorrow, is for everyone to, I kind of beg you, if you've never used it before, just commit to the next 5 days, every day, trying to get the pranayama under your belt. And then once the challenge ends on Friday, Saturday, trying to keep it going. They say ideally 5 days a week. If you can keep that going for 21 days, it becomes a habit. And if it becomes a habit, we're going to get the benefits. And if we get the benefits, it's going to be game changing. So the challenge tomorrow is for everyone to commit to a 10 or 20 minute pranayama practice. In the workbook, we provided 2 links, both of which are by a lady called Yoga with Adrian, who you may have known. We love her. We use her a lot. She's brilliant. She's authentic. She's genuine. One of them is, I think it's a 7-minute or 8.5 minute alternate nostril breathing pranayama. The other one is, I think, 21 minutes. And it's a combination of gentle yoga asanas, a yoga flow with pranayama. And also there's lots of people. I think there's Polly. I think you're watching. You can comment. I think there's quite a few other practices that are coming up on the page. We've got quite a few yoga teachers on board on the challenge. Holly's put Bev Spiller here's the okay. Yeah. So there's I think we're going to be posting up a few different options. But if you go on YouTube, if you don't get on with the Yoga with Adrian ones, there's lots of other ones. Okay. But the Yoga with Adrian, if you try the short one first. I think it's 7 minutes. It's the alternate nostril breathing. To my mind, and I've tried virtually every type of pranayama, even the more abstract ones that aren't so well known. And for me, the alternate nostril breathing is the one that I find most profoundly impactful. Okay, and it's based upon the fact, again, which is supported by evidence, the breathing through one nostril or the other exclusively affects only one hemisphere of the brain. So by breathing alternately through each nostril, you animate each hemisphere of the brain and all of the regulatory roles that hemisphere plays. And I love alternate nostril breathing. I think for me it's the pranayama practice that induces the most discernible benefits. So ideally check out the shorter of the 2 first. and then maybe explore the second one, the longer one after that. But there are lots of other options, and I think Holly's just put up there, we'll post some links tomorrow for other options. And if any of you guys listening, if you've got your own pranayama or you've got your own videos that you use, anything that you can share, then it would be fantastic if we can get that real kind of energy and engagement going. Jenny, I tell my students, if you don't have time for 20 minutes pranayama a day, then do 20. That should become a mantra for all of us. That is absolutely on the money. Jenny's just put, I tell my students, if you don't have time for 10 minutes pranayama, do 20 minutes. That is exactly it. And just to digress, this is why these sessions always overrun, just because Jenny's put that. So the blue zones, human longevity zones, where people live to 100, 105, 110, in really good health, independent, mobile, self-sufficient. And one of the top areas one of the top longevity zones is an island called Ikaria in Greece. And when I was working at Southampton, we got some of the transcripts from the Harvard Medical School research into what allows these people to live so long. And there was a beautiful quote in there from a 102-year-old Greek fisherman who still helped his son and grandson mend the nets and do this, that, and the other. And he was talking about stress, and he said, if your life's going swimmingly and everything's tickety-boo, you need to spend half an hour every day contemplatively in nature, whether it's sitting on the beach staring out to sea, walking through the forest. You need half an hour silence in nature, unless you're stressed, unless you're flat out busy, and then you need an hour. And I love that idea that when things are going well, we need less of it. When things are going badly, we need more of it, because our response usually, and I'm the world's worst at this, I hold my hands up, when we're flat out busy and we're feeling completely overwhelmed, we think, okay, I'm going to squeeze in a 5-minute meditation or a 5-minute pranayama. And what we should be doing is saying, right, I'm going to do a 50-minute one or something like that. So you're absolutely right, Jenny. Helen, I did Adrian's one a couple of weeks ago, but felt quite lightheaded. Not sure if that is a beginner's response. I think, Laura, but I love Adrian's yoga. She's calm and look forward to trying the pranayama. Yeah, so the key thing with pranayama is she guides you through it pretty slowly, but listen to your body. Okay, everyone's got different lung capacities, everyone's got different breathing rates. So if you're doing the alternate nostril breathing, anyone that's teaching you, no one can really teach you. Someone can guide you on the technique, but because everyone's lung capacity is different, everyone's breathing rate will be different. So you have to kind of regulate it based upon what's comfortable for you. It might be that you're breathing slower or faster or more deeply or less deeply. So if you feel a little bit lightheaded, the general view with pranayama is if you do pranayama and you feel lightheaded, take a 1-minute pause. So say you're doing the alternate nostril breathing where you're in and out and you're getting lightheaded, just take a 1-minute pause where you just you just breathe completely normally, reset the oxygen exchange, reset the system, and then go again. Okay, so you definitely have to, it's impossible for anyone to guide you with it to a degree because we're all so different. So you have to take your cue from what your lungs and what your breath is telling you, okay, and act accordingly, okay. So please, everyone tomorrow have a go at ideally the shorter of the two in the workbook, the alternate nostril breathing practice, okay? And then tomorrow we'll be live at 12, we'll be live at midday. We're talking about the second contentment ritual, which is Tuesday's one, which is all about the gut connection. We'll be looking at stimulating digestion. We'll be looking at how to make an Ayurvedic probiotic, something called Taka, using just ingredients you can get from any supermarket. We'll be talking about Ayurvedic prebiotics and Ayurvedic probiotics. So in 4 is 4 in 7 hold 8. Yeah, so that would also be a pranayama. So breathing in for 4, holding for 7, out for 8. So any of those breath countings, there's loads of different pranayama exercises, but anything that allows us to consciously control our breathing will fall under the umbrella of pranayama. Okay, so tomorrow, all about gut health. It's about why gut health is so important for contentment in terms of our hormones, in terms of our dopamine and serotonin, in terms of our toxins. So we're looking at prebiotics, how to use Ayurvedic prebiotics, how to use and make Ayurvedic probiotics so you don't need to buy supplements. And also looking at a brilliant technique for keeping the gut in tip-top health. Okay, so really important one tomorrow. So anyone's got any good links for pranayama, do share them. Keep all the posts coming with all your lovely meals. Well done for you guys for all of your meal prep. You posted up some corkers of meals and photos. So yeah, let's make this week really energized, really powerful. Let's come together as a community. Let's really engage. Let's dominate the week. Let's get to Saturday having committed, and if we commit, we'll feel better. Okay, so it's lovely to see you all here. Lots of new names, which is lovely to see new people here. So thank you for joining me and joining us. And I will see you at 12 noon tomorrow for Contentment Ritual number 2. But have a lovely evening, everyone, and I'll see you all soon.